What is going on, everybody? It is the Wednesday show. I'm your host at Mike Killy on Twitter. With me, as always, at Bonzo1273, Mike Restano. How's it going, Mike?
It's going. At least we get a little break this week because I don't know about you, but I don't know if I could take much more at this point.
Yeah, no, it's pretty brutal. I would say that. I like the shirt and I like the hat. It's like the deep fall shirt. It's like perfectly mirrors that hat.
And you know how I roll, so you know that I went rooting through my closet to find this perfect match. I knew I had a hat that would look beautiful with the deep fall t-shirt, which probably is not going to be there much longer. So everybody listening, if you want one, it's a nice t-shirt, true to size. Go
True to
pick one up.
size.
True to size. Pick one up. It's we're in we are in the deep fall, and our Browns are in deep shit.
Yeah, they're deep falling out of contention like minute by minute. I'm tweeting it out right now. Tweet. Yeah, so God, man. First of all, I love the outfit. I love the hat. I think it matches perfect. Is there an elf on the other side too? Can I see that? The one side of it?
Is it on that side?
Other side. Nice mesh.
Yeah.
Elf. I'm breaking out the Santa. There's a Browns thing on there, right? Cleveland Browns Santa, right? So I'm gonna be rocking that. Leading up to Christmas, right? So leading up to the Christmas game.
Tonight is the tree lighting ceremony at Rockefeller Center. If anybody is into that kind of thing, record it because we need you here, not watching that.
Absolutely. My gosh, I haven't been. I was actually supposed to go to New York next week. Really going to be more in Brooklyn, but every time I go to New York, I like to try to get into the city a little bit. But I love New York City in like at this time of year.
Yeah.
It's amazing this time of year. But I wasn't sure about all the COVID stuff and are things open, or I don't know. I didn't know. So anyway, we ended up postponing the trip, and then I was supposed to go to Chicago on a different business trip. That got canceled, and then we were supposed to go to Denver. That got canceled, and I'm like, all right. I'm like, well, just I get to actually do the show from home for once.
That's right. You've been a road dog, yeah.
Right. I was actually I was in the hotel, and I was thinking about that because I was like, you're the lone dog from the road dogs.
So history there, huh?
Absolutely. How you feeling? I mean, I know, and by the way, everybody, we have a early almost birthday, and if we go long tonight, we actually might even make it to your birthday. But it is almost birthday. Mike's birthday is tomorrow. He's going to be older.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we could go, we could run the gamut tonight, and I know we will. But the one thing that I'm lying, the two things that keep coming back to me that it just doesn't sit right with me. And it starts with 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
And you could only muster 3 points. I've been, it really is. I mean, I'm speechless. I'm over here, tripping on my words. I don't understand it. And then I was just, we were just talking about, I had ESPN on earlier, but right before that show had come on, it was it was an interview with Lamar, and he was talking about how, it was his worst game, and he hopes he never has another game where he throws 4 interceptions. And just to go there real quick before I go on with the rest of the thought is, you have to split these two with this other game coming up. And at their place, they gave you 4 gifts and we couldn't capitalize on it. If our offense was just the least bit inept, you win that game. And this show, it has a whole different feel to it right now, because we're optimistic because, hey, now we're playing with house money. And, if they put on a good defensive performance like they did the other night, we definitely could have swept the season series against them. But the odds of Lamar playing as poor in 2 weeks like he did the other day is slim to none. So you blew that. And then on top of that, and it sort of coincides with what we were talking about, is they haven't been able to score more than 10 points in the past 3 games. And then if you take out the Bengals game with those 41 points, I think they're averaging 11.8 points a game. I mean, putrid.
Now it's funny. My wife said that she saw some stat that it was very similar, I think, to the Chargers game. There was some weird stat that was like, there's never in NFL history been a team that has gotten 4 interceptions and lost until Sunday.
Yeah. 0-57, I want to say.
And wasn't there another weird stat like that earlier in the season? Something like, I want to say it was the Chargers game. It was like something like no team had ever done that.
Yeah.
And then lost. I can't remember what the stat was.
Yeah, it was scoring. It was something like scoring that many points and leading at a certain point, or I don't know. It was one of those ones you don't want to be on the other end of the record. And here we are again.
I mean, but if somebody's going to be on that end of the record, it's like going to be us or like the Jets, And, the funny thing was thinking about my whole NFL football life, it was like, who are the teams that were always kind of in the dumpster? It was like us, obviously the Jets, the Lions, Tampa Bay.
Yeah. I mean, people forget Tampa Bay back in the creamsicle days. I mean, they were
putrid,
atrocious. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Steve Young, Vinny Testaverde years. I mean, it was laughable. Did they had a season where they didn't win a game, right?
Yeah, I think they were one of the unlucky ones as well that went over.
Yeah, and then Saints, yeah, real Browns fans says Saints. I mean, these were teams that were just like horrid. And then, Saints got a Super Bowl, Tampa Bay's got a couple Super Bowls. And so I want to I'm going to save this for a little bit later, but I got a couple different scenarios that I want to throw at you from the QB perspective, and just want to see where I just want to see where your mind's going to take us here.
Sure.
But I think so we're what? We're 6-6, and I think I wanted to ask, like, where do we go now? Oh, no, where do we go? Wow.
How ironic. I was just reading an article today about guns.
I saw them live. Not in the good time. They came to Hershey, Pennsylvania in like 87.
Yeah.
And they were so explicit that they got banned from ever returning. And
I believe it.
My cousins went. My cousins were my age, so 7, and I think my other older cousin was 9, something like that. I mean, it might have been like 8 and 10, something like that, whatever. But their dad, my uncle, took him to the concert, and they were saying like women were up on guys' shoulders, like flashing, the stand. It was just like
a Motley Crue concert.
It was just craziness, swearing. They were like, my uncle remembers like visually seeing white powder under Axel's nose. I mean, he could see it like from where they were sitting, and it was just craziness. So I didn't get to see it during the heyday. I wasn't really like kind of into music at that point. But they came to Orlando when they just went. It was just Slash, Duff, and Axel.
Yep.
Basically playing. I mean, they're playing their own songs. But I mean, it's Guns N' Roses, but it's not Guns N' Roses. It's like it's like it isn't, but it is.
Like it's not even, because I don't want to take us down a Guns N' Roses.
If my dad is listening.
But I know, he's probably like, what the hell is going on?
He's fuming. So there's not even PFFs aren't even on the topic list.
No, they're not. Look at that.
I forgot.
but what I was gonna say was it's not even like, you go, oh man, it's guns with Axel and Izzy and Duff and
Izzy.
Slash and Steven Adler.
Yeah.
And you're like,
and
that's
Steven
the original.
Adler, was Steven Adler the original drummer?
He was the original drummer, and that's where I was going. So you don't even see that lineup. And then it's like you can't even get the, Axel, Slash, Gilby Clarke, Duff, and Matt Sorum Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, the Matt Sorum is the one that I really remember the most.
Yeah, obviously they were huge, but after Appetite. But I mean the Gilby Clarke and Matt Sorum era, I mean that's what that's what put them over the top. But
yeah,
but it's funny you said that, because I literally was reading an article. It was Matt Sorum talking about Guns and talking about how they were all at each other's throats during the heyday in the 90s, that the shows that the people got to see were so cutting edge rock and roll, because he said there were nights where he was so pissed that he would just bang the hell out of his drums and they would just crush it every night. And it was because of that intensity and animosity, built up. So I thought that was interesting.
From what I understand, I think they all hated Axel too. It was like mostly Axel's fault, and then Duff because of the alcohol, and it was like he was constantly hammered. And
oh yeah,
I mean, and then Izzy I think Izzy was on heroin, wasn't he?
Izzy, did you remember? And we'll stop because I know your dad's fuming right now. But
until he shows up in the chat, I think we have the green light. We will get to more Brown stuff, but this is fascinating conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we may go into Faster Pussycat and Warrant, who knows? But
Rat,
round and round. But do you remember when Izzy took a leak in the middle of the aisle on the airliner? That was the downfall. That was the end of the end.
I remember the story about Axel like just peeing into the crowd.
Yeah, that went on too.
Yeah,
crazy.
That was wild. And the reason why I was kind of bringing that up, because I was like, where do we go from here? And I was like, where do we go now? So, but it's funny.
To play air guitar with you.
It was wild. And but it was wild because I went to see the concert here in Orlando. We paid $250 a seat.
Yeah, it's not a cheap ticket.
And they weren't close. They were decent seats, but it was also outside and it was kind of drizzling. But it was like, we're here listening to Guns N' Roses. So it's like, that's like that type of sound vibration only comes around so often, and it's not going to last very long. And you have to get in there and experience it for that time. And I got an email saying that on kind of along the same route. And I reached out to the same guy that I went to the Guns N' Roses concert with and asked him if he wanted to go to this one too. I've never seen Roger Waters live. Okay. And I was like, you know what? I've always just been a big Floyd fan. Not huge, not like really, really huge into Floyd, but I was really big into Radiohead my entire life. They've always been my number one band.
Solid band. I've
seen them, I mean, well over a dozen times at this point, and they were really heavily influenced by Floyd. So a lot of that, I want to see it. And I was like, hey man, I know these tickets are going to be expensive. Let's go get tickets. Go see Roger Waters. We'll get ripped. We'll get ripped and we'll just experience it. And
Did you do it?
He's like, all right. He's like, the tickets are going to be expensive, but that's one that we might have to do. So anyway.
Oh, so you haven't done it yet?
No, we haven't bought them yet. But I mean, there's seats available everywhere. You
got to do it. I mean, this is probably the end.
Yeah, because God, I mean, I've had opportunities to go in the past when they've done I think back in the 90s they were doing The Wall, start to finish The Wall, and stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like this is the time I need to do it. So, but anyway, to actually get to the topic at hand, where do we go here? I mean, it's 6-6. We've definitely retracted from where we were, obviously at this point last season, but just in general.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we were 11-5 last year, and we've now lost more games than we lost the entire season last year.
Yep.
We have 5 to go. And I'm just perplexed at this point. I'm not really sure what to do. I'd love to know what you're thinking.
Yeah, it's I really, if you look at the defensive side of the ball, right, with the exception of a couple guys, we're as healthy as we've ever been all year long. And now you're going to have Phillips come back. He should be back, if not for the Ravens game, soon thereafter. So, depending on where he is, and I'm sure he rehabbed, intensely. So you throw him in there with JOK, and now you've got some nice speed at linebacker. So now by getting him back, I feel like you're upgrading the middle of the defense. The secondary has been playing really well. John Johnson has started to come into his own, and I don't know if that's more so scheme or he's just, sometimes it takes a little bit, especially when a guy makes changes and it's a new defense. You're learning, how to play with these different guys, and then you go on the one side, and it's funny because 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we were guilty of it, complaining about Denzel and his health. Meanwhile, I mean, he's been locked down. I mean, if you look at some of the PFF stuff, I think they're catching like 30% against him. I mean, the numbers were pretty intense. He's just playing really well. And Newsome has come into his own. I mean, he's really not playing like a rookie at all. Delpit is showing signs of life. Harrison still, he is what he is. JOK, we talked about phenomenal. I mean, 12 tackles the other day. I mean, he was everywhere. I'm sure you've seen the one film clip of just textbook taking on, shedding the blocker, and just sticking the running back. And then on the flip side of that, I mean, if you're Lamar Jackson looking out at the defense, and Jock was lined up between the right guard and the right tackle, and Lamar ran to his left, and I mean, JOK, like a lightning bolt, was there before Lamar could even make the turn to go back upfield. I mean, he's the lights out. So my long-winded speech here is simply, I think you're going to continue to get this good play out of the defense. I mean, think of what I just named, and I didn't even talk about Clowney or Miles. So,
and that actually brings up an interesting point, and I wanted to ask. I think since we have Jadeveon on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
I think he was talked into this to say, hey, look, we got a real shot at something special this year. We wanted you last year. We want you again this year. We're going to give you the money, right? We're going to pay you to do your thing. We're going to put you on the other side of Myles Garrett. And for the most part, he's stayed healthy. I mean, for the most part, he's had a season that I think, I wouldn't say it's like a resurgence type of season. It's like, for his age and for what he brings to the table, I think he's met expectations, I think.
Yeah, perfect piece on the other side.
Right. Now, question.
Absolutely.
Do we bring him? Do we try to bring him back? Would he want to come back? Right? Or is he going to try to like go stick onto a team, and chase a ring?
In Barry's presser today, and you know how he is, he plays his cards really close to the vest, and you're really never going to get anything, from him. But the little bit that they did, or I should say he did talk about Clowney, it sounded to me like, that's going to be something that they're interested in bringing him back. And I think, I don't see why he wouldn't. I think that he enjoys the team, from what I understand. It's a perfect situation for him on the other side of Miles. He doesn't have to worry about all the double teams like Miles gets. And, they're a good defense, and they could be a really good team it's just they're and I guess that's sort of where I was going with this whole thing is the defense is going to keep them in the next 5 games. There's no question about it.
Mhm.
Even Green Bay, as much as that seems like, it'll just be a boat race.
Mhm.
I think the defense is starting to really click, and they're playing well. I don't think the New England game was just throw that out. It was just a bad day. I don't think, the defense is as bad as that game, and they've showed us that they're not. They're gelling, and they're a good unit. I just think it comes down to, what's going on the offensive side of the ball, and I went back and I watched like the past 3 games, and I mean it's like the perfect storm. You're talking about receivers dropping balls, Baker missing reads, missing wide open guys, and you can't use the injury. I come from the school that if you're well enough to play, then that injury is not affecting the way you're able to deliver the ball, etc.
It's fair.
So that excuse, I don't buy it. And then, I don't know from a play call standpoint, right? I don't know if Stefanski is calling a bad game necessarily, especially after looking at the last game. We just don't execute. It's just it's poor, right? But I did during the game, and you and I talked about it too. I don't think it's a bad idea to pass off play calling responsibilities, not because he's doing a bad job, just so maybe we can get some discipline and get some things under control. In the meantime, I'm not saying that he has to give up and relinquish play calling forever. But I mean, there's things that are going on that you just can't have. I mean, the pre-snap penalties are atrocious across the board all year.
Oh, I was tweeting it out during the game. An illegal formation on offense, illegal formation on a kick return. I think we had.
I mean, yeah, and think about this, Mike. And this is what really got my wheels turning. Is we had 12 men on the field for a punt.
Yeah. After timeout. After how many whistles and timeouts?
Right. We called a timeout so we wouldn't get penalized. Then we came out of the timeout
with 12 men
and got penalized with 12 men on the field. Can't happen.
Yeah.
It just can't happen. And it's and again, like I said, going back and watching it, the play calling is not as bad as you would want it to be, right? While you're watching the game, you're like, oh, but with that being said, and I don't know what if it's a Stefanski thing. I mean, it must be, but Baker does an audible. Like there's 2 plays that are called, and you have the choice of 1 or 2. So that leads me to believe that one play in particular, it was a run to Chubb, and we're looking out from Baker's eyes. So it was a handoff to Chubb, off tackle, and the Ravens overloaded the side. I mean, there were like 4 guys on that side, and we just ran the play anyway, which leads me to believe that whatever the second of the 2 play calls that came in was something to that side as well. And they just ran it. Like, how do you not even have the ability to just call an audible at the line and run it to the weak side? It's I don't know. I don't get it. And we're predictable.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I will say, because 8 out of 10 times, if we're running 13 personnel and we got the 2 tight ends on the one side, guess where we're running? And in the play in particular that I'm talking about, where we didn't audible out, that's where everybody was. That was we had 2 tight ends on the strong side. We ran that way. There were 4 or 5 guys literally on that side waiting, and we didn't even audible out of it. So you're just pissing away a play. It's just like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll break it. Just run it the other way.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? One thing I was thinking the other day, I don't think that Stefanski, especially not mid-season, is he going to say, you know what? It ain't working. I'm not calling the plays right. There's no way that's going to happen. It's unlikely that he's going to relinquish play calling ever. And I think that could be the downfall of Stefanski. That could be if he is not willing to bring in an offensive coordinator and let him focus on the rest of it, then that could be a challenge. And I think this was the big. He exceeded my expectations enormously last year. He gave us what we thought we were getting with Freddie last year, right? So he gave us that, and I will always hold him in high regard for that. But this season, and we talked about this quite a bit with the fans in the stands and all the pressures and all that stuff, which is a little bit different. It seems like he's not doing as well.
A lot going on.
None of the razzle dazzle plays have worked this year. Not a single one.
No, and you know what? I'm okay with them. But and this is where what you just said, where the hustle and bustle of an actual full stadium and crowd noise and distractions gets into you. Because why would you run that play after you just ran a 41-yard pass play to your tight end? Why would you come back?
Yeah.
At that point? Now, of course, hindsight, if that play worked, we'd all be, praising him.
I still would have looked at that and gone, that's an odd time. And maybe that's why he did, because he's like, look, we're trying to say they're probably not going to be ready for this. But I think there's a couple things that I have an issue with Stefanski this year. Number one, it seems like his play calling, like you just mentioned, it doesn't lack creativity from the standpoint of like we can't come up with like razzle dazzle plays. That's not what I would consider creativity. I consider that like motioning people, like moving Baker around, running counter gap plays, like just stuff that throws defenses off their keel a little bit. We're not doing that. The other thing that was a major disappointment, my dad and I both said this, the final drive, you've got 2 of the best running backs in the league, both staring at the plays from the sideline.
Yeah.
Not to say that DEJ isn't serviceable, but when you have Nick Chubb and you have Kareem Hunt and you opt to go with Dearness Johnson, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, no, and I get it. And afterwards, Hunt, his calf tightened up a little bit, so that's why he wasn't in there. But Nick Chubb is your bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
So Nick Chubb
he's a threat. You have to respect. It's like, Mike, if I would have told you that at this point in the season, our team identity is beginning to look like we're heavily favoring the defense at this point in the season. Well, going into the season with Jarvis and OBJ and Hunt and Chubb and Hooper and Njoku and Baker. And I would have said our offense would be in shambles. We can't score more than 10, 13 points. And our defense is consistently holding teams under 20. Give or take, there's a couple games where they went off the rocker, but again, that's still, there's an inconsistency factor there.
No, I agree, and you could even take it a step further, and they were asked about it, or he was asked about it, and there was no, at that time there was no, tightening of a calf or anything like that. But on that third down play, why is Felton in there? Where he turned his head to run and drop the ball and would have had the first down, and that drive would have kept going, and we were on the other side of the 50. Why wasn't Hunt in there at that time? So then that goes back to, and again, I'm just, this is all hypothetical. We don't know for a fact, but, is the commotion of game day and trying to get subs in and whatever, and what package, was that an oversight that Felton got thrown out in that package instead of Hunt?
Mike, I got to tell you, it is clear. And this is my big challenge with Stefanski. This is a dude that's learning on the job. And when you have a guy who's learning on the job in a vacuum like we had last year, you have success, right? Yeah. Because you don't have those pressures. You can sit there, you can calculate, you can do all this stuff without the environment and the atmosphere getting to you, right?
Yeah.
And think about this too. The playoff game that we won last year without Stefanski, we had Van Pelt calling the plays, and he called a good game. So it's not like if we did decide to shift to an offensive, like a traditional offensive coordinator, and allow Stefanski to manage the game, because ultimately that is his job. He's doing double duty right now. He's a second-year head coach who is bitten off a little bit more than he can chew, and he was riding the success that he had last year on that. And also the other thing that I think a lot of us take for granted is, these teams are they're getting a book on you. They used to always say that about baseball. Hey, new member. Mike R is now a member. He's a tier 1 member.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I want to use my little mug.
You want the emojis. I want
the emoji.
Hey guys.
Right in the middle of the show. I'm in just so I can use
all right, let's go. Let's get some Mike R's up in the chat. God, I'm throwing. I don't even know what I was going to say now.
I threw you right off.
You threw me off completely. I don't know, man. I think that you're as a head coach, second-year head coach now, they get a book. And what I was going to say about the book thing in baseball, I remember there's always time where you have a new guy coming in. Maybe you bring somebody up from the minor leagues, and they just go nuts. The Mets had a guy back in the day, back in the late 90s, Benny Agbayani, who came up and just was lights out. I mean, he had like 20-something home runs in like half a season, and everybody thought he was the next coming of Christ. And then I remember my friend's dad was like, look, this guy's never hit more than like 13 in the minors. And as soon as these guys get a book on him, like knowing where his weaknesses are, all those home runs are going away. And it was true.
Oof.
He came back to earth. And I think that could be what we're experiencing with Kevin Stefanski. These guys are looking at him going, okay, we know he's going to throw in a razzle-dazzle play at some point in the season. We know that's going to happen. Let's just, prepare for this stuff. I mean, these are professionals, and teams like the Steelers and teams like the Ravens, who are two of the best coaches, not from a head coach perspective. I mean, I don't know how much credit I give to Harbaugh and how much credit I give to Tomlin, other than you're not seeing those teams that are leading the league in penalty yards. You're not seeing those teams making mistakes like, 12 men on the field and illegal formations, illegal shift, blah, 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 multiple times a game, right? And part of the reason is they're going to their office, they're going to their staff that they hired who share the same philosophy, and they're saying, do your job. I'll do mine. I'll manage who's on the field. I'll manage the clock. I'll manage the overall. I'll set the tone with the strategy. Your job on offense is to go score points. Your job on defense is to make them not score points.
Yeah,
go execute.
What I always really liked is a special teams coach as the head coach, and I've always liked that, only because they're not tied. You're as the coach, and let's say from the front office standpoint, your head coach is not tied to one side or the other, because they're not calling the plays offensively or defensively. Those like a John Harbaugh, you've got your defensive coordinator, you've got your offensive coordinator, and you are just working the sideline as the commander in chief of your team. And I always really liked that aspect. And if you look at John Harbaugh, I mean, they've had nothing but success over there. He lets his, they had good hires at the offensive side and the defensive side, especially from the offensive side. I mean, he built an offense around Lamar, and and Harbaugh just does his thing, and I mean, it is what it is, and Stefanski's going to be here a while, and that's fine because we need some continuity, and I think he is a good coach, and but to your point, he's learning on the job, and he's going to continue to learn on the job, and it's just it depends on what. I don't care what anybody says. If you don't think for a second that the next 5 games aren't part of the evaluation process for the offense of Baker Mayfield, you're crazy.
Oh yeah,
because it is. I'm not now. Today, Barry said, it's the whole, because he was asked a few times about, they were Dorsey and Mary Kay were leading the charge, of course, but they were looking for a direct quote from him saying he's our guy, or we're still evaluating. And you're not going to get that from Barry. We said it earlier, but it was interesting because he was like, oh, it's not a one game by one game, which obviously, it's a big picture of his whole career essentially. So I got to tell you, in year 4, if you look through the history of it, these 5 games do mean something, because I mean, aside from his rookie year, it's been pretty dismal. I mean, he played well down the stretch last year, but I mean, they were playing, JV teams. I mean, the schedule was not difficult last year. And again, not to beat a dead horse, you're not on offense in a hostile environment and false start on first down because the crowd is just, out of their mind loud.
Yeah.
It was like working in an aquarium. So I definitely think that these next 5 games are going to matter. And I think they're going to matter to a point of, I think he's here.
Are they going to matter more for Baker, or anything you think they're going to look at all the staff, including coaching?
If you go back and you look, like I said, I went back and I watched like 3 games, and you really can't blame it on the coaching. I mean, there's been a couple of stupid things here and there, and of course, like the pre-snap penalties and just the discipline kind of stuff that drives us wild. But from an actual, the guy on the sidelines can only do so much, right? They call a play they think is going to work, and then it's all about the execution. And from what I've seen, they're just not executing very well. It's not really so much the play calling as it is they just can't execute. And I'm not saying that there were times where Stefanski, abandoned the run and got a little pass happy or whatever. That comes down to what you just said. I mean, there's still growing pains there. I mean, it's year 2 of a young head coach, so that's expected. But there is a lot of bad execution on the field, and I'm talking about at your tight end position, at your wide receiver position. I mean, let's all be honest with ourselves here. And there was a little bit of chatter about this on Twitter during the day. Some folks were talking about it or whatnot. You can't sit there and tell me, even with his ankle injury, that's he's past at this point, that Jed Wills is playing like a top 10 draft pick.
I saw that.
Because he's not. He's not. So he needs to get it together. Like, he was drafted to be the left tackle of the future. And the way he's been playing, you sort of look at it and go, man, I wonder if we could throw him on the right side and get like a legit, Tristan Wirf kind of guy, and Mekhi Becton.
Yeah.
Because those were the guys that were available, and we went with Jed. And the kid's good, don't get me wrong. But I would have liked to seen a little bit more growth up to this point. And point being is, now you're going to be looking for a right tackle, because I don't think if you look at the numbers of guys coming back from a torn patella, and it depends on where the tear is and how the tear is, but those numbers aren't very favorable to come back from something like that. So for all intent and purpose, we're going to be looking for a right tackle next year. So, and let's say in the off chance that, he's on the positive side of those numbers, you're not coming back from a patellar tear ready to go to training camp. You're not coming back from a patellar tendon tear ready to play week 3. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a ways into the season before we would see him again.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I was actually thinking about that too. I haven't been impressed with how Jed's been playing this season at all. And I don't know how much of that you can attribute to the injury that he had in Kansas City. And is it still affecting him? I don't know. Or is it just at this point, we've kind of seen his ceiling. Like, it's sad to say, but like you look at Becton, you look at Wirfs. Who was the other guy? Thomas?
Yeah, there was one other that's.
Well, he was the first one that was off the board.
Yeah,
and it was like we didn't have a shot at him either. But those were the guys that were like in the conversation.
Yep.
And it's, I mean, by the numbers, and I'm not saying this is, I think Jed's a good guy. He's a friend of some of my friends, but I will tell you, like, by the numbers, he's the worst one.
Yeah, I mean,
it is what it is.
Week in and week out, it is. You're absolutely right. But again, as we talked about earlier, can you use the injury excuse if you're playing? I mean, Jed hasn't missed a game in 5 games, right? Something like that. I mean, I would assume. Let's look at it this way. JOK came off a high ankle sprain, tweaked it 2 weeks ago, and then was playing like his hair was on fire the other day. I mean, you tell me, but JOK always looks fast. To me, the other night, he looked like he had like another speed the other night.
Oh yeah, I mean, and this is where I was going to go too. Do you think that we double down, like in the draft, do we double down on defense because of how well guys like JOK and Greg Newsome have worked out? Do we look to add that other anchor type edge, a young edge on the other side that can complement Miles, like a young Jadeveon? Now, young Jadeveon coming out of college had as much potential as Miles.
Oh yeah, I mean,
he just never lived up to it.
Yeah.
And so if we could go out there and get, I mean, you're not going to find a Miles. Where we're going to draft is going to be somewhere around 16, 17 at this point is where everybody's putting us.
Which it could go south and you could wind up in the top 10.
You're right. It could. So, but either way, if there was a Miles in this draft, you're going to have to get lucky. You're not going to get him because I don't think this is going to be a quarterback heavy draft, right?
I'll tell you what though, if they, and I don't want to get this conversation started, but if they were in the mood, right, to go quarterback in the first round, I absolutely flat out love the kid from Pitt.
I don't disagree with you on that. It just comes down to, like, are they willing to reset?
And I think that's what it comes down to, because to your point about do they double down and go defense? It's so bizarre to me. Like if in hindsight, right? And we had just done this a little bit earlier. If you look at the beginning of this year, right? Just think of the conversations with me or your buddies or everybody in here. it was like, oh man, look at, tight end set, Hooper, Bryant's coming into his own, Njoku, maniac. You look at the wide receivers, OBJ is going to be back. He looks great, legit threat. DPJ, another year, he's going to be really good. Jarvis, obviously. And we're still high on Higgins. And then you're like, oh, look at this offensive line. Will's in his second year.
Teller come, like maybe healthy Teller all year. What
Right.
could he do?
What could he do? The line is we and it's not like we were just saying it. I mean, even with the injuries, they still talk about how we have the best offensive line in football. And then I didn't even get to Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. But I guess the point being is now, when this season ends, barring, a DPJ breakout over the next 5 games, that all of a sudden, like, he just became, I don't know, DJ Moore meets DeAndre Hopkins, right? Unless that happens, I mean, Higgins was a healthy scratch, right? You would think our best, besides Jarvis, our best possession receiver, with as thin as we are, would have been out there. But, they chose to go with 2 kids. I'm not in the locker room. You're not in the locker room. We don't know why, but they do what they do. But the point being is, now you go into that draft and you're like, and dependent on what their thought process is on Baker, right? Because we don't know, everybody, that thinks they're a who's who on Twitter, oh, they're never doing this, they're never doing it. Nobody knows.
No,
you don't know.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. You don't know. You don't know what Barry's thinking. You could pretend that you think that you're in his head, but he could have already moved on and is going to draft somebody, or is going to go, full out on a free agent. Who knows? Nobody knows. But the point is that all of a sudden now, depending on what the rest of these 5 games look like, what we thought would have just been another plug and play in this year's draft, 25, 26, 27. We didn't think we were going to win the Super Bowl this year. Now becomes well, we need a receiver, and depending on what they want to do, they might want to go get a quarterback. And, now we don't have a right tackle. So now we might have to go and draft a right tackle. And I mean, Landry's probably going to be gone if he doesn't take a pay cut, and I don't see it. So it's not like you could just go out and draft one receiver. I mean, maybe you can get like an Allen Robinson in free agency, because the Adams and there's a couple other guys that are free agents. I can't think of them off the top of my head. They're not coming here, right? They want to go somewhere to make money and catch balls, and right now that ain't here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all of a sudden, I guess the long-winded ending to what I just did here is the fact that come April, I mean, there could be a lot of holes that need to be filled. And I mean, even if you look at the defensive tackles, I mean, they've been playing okay. They could go a lot of different places, but unfortunately, we have so many needs now.
I mean, dude, you're absolutely right. I was thinking, we could go defensive, if depending upon what happens with Clowney, we could go defensive end in the first round. We could go defensive tackle in the first round, like you said. We could add another elite linebacker to shore up the middle of the field. That could be, again, we're going to face Lamar Jackson 2 times a year minimum for the rest of eternity. So if you can get another JOK in the first round, is that worth it? Do you go do you go safety at all? I mean, is that the direction that we take? Right. So that, and then on the offensive side of the ball, we've got the wild card of it. Do we tell the world that although we have Baker for his 5th year, that he's on notice, and we just drafted this other? Can you draft a kid in the first round? I do not care. That kid has to play for you at some point. You cannot, Jordan Love that kid. You can't. Right. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. He had to sit behind Favre for a long time. Phillip Rivers with with Drew Brees at some point, and Baker has had this in his history the entire time. At some point, now that we've gotten over, hey, what kind of guy do we have, right? If he starts having games like he's had the last couple, they're going to go, what do we have to lose? Why don't we throw the kid in there and see how we can do? And then you've got a kid who's not getting first team reps all season long, who's being thrust into this role behind a guy who's on, 50 different commercials on Sunday, who's kind of the face of the team, who was part of the big rebuilding effort. So the chemistry is going to be all thrown off, right? It's not going to be like Case Keenum and Baker. Case is trying to help him. Baker's got no incentive to make this guy better, right? To try to come up and take his job. So, if you go the direction of a kid in the first round, you have to assume, hey, Baker, we're running with you this year, and go audition for another team. That's what you're doing right now. You go out there and you win, you're auditioning for another team, right? And so there's that direction. Then you've got, like you said, right tackle is going to be a problem. Is it something that if there's a left tackle that's available, do we go left tackle and move Jed over to the right? Maybe that's a smart move.
And then you go, all right, well, we wasted that draft pick, right? It's just so many.
Yeah,
Carnes. That's the cool thing about the NFL. No, don't you think? Like one bad draft or bad pick can ruin you for years.
Oh, that's what happened to our franchise for the last 2 decades.
Yeah,
it's like we never hit on those draft picks, or if we hit on them, they were good for one season, like Braylon, and then just collapsed and went back to nothing.
Yeah.
But, Carnes was out there today tweeting, hey, Andrew Berry just hasn't missed in the first and second round with like guys like, Jed and Delpit, and then you got JOK and you've got, Greg Newsome. But it's we can make the argument that he didn't really hit on Jed. And I can certainly make the argument that he definitely didn't hit on Delpit. Delpit's had some moments, but he's also lost his mind a couple times.
Yeah, and I mean,
he's not batting 1,000. That's what I'm saying.
No, and I mean when they took Delpit, I mean he was an injury-prone guy.
Yeah,
so
they knew that going in.
So you lose him year one, and it's totally unrelated to any of the injury, issues that he had in college. But as you know, and there's people out there that are so strong against nobody's injury prone. Yeah, there's such a thing as being injury prone. Like Jack Conklin has become injury prone, right? One thing leads into the next thing. And I got to be honest, you have to wonder. I mean, now don't get me wrong, upper body, lower body, totally different, different portion. But I mean, the guy dislocated his elbow right in front of me on Halloween.
Yeah.
It hasn't been that long. Like, I think like if I dislocated my elbow, like I'm thinking like at this
year
on December 1st, like I should be able to hold my coffee mug and take a sip and be okay and not pain and not feel pain. So you wonder, he wasn't completely healed. So, I mean, that old adage where you hurt one knee and it's still bothering you a little bit and you baby just that, and then you jack up the other one.
Yep.
So, for all we know, because the guy landed on his leg, for all we know, he could have fell because that arm, he started feeling something in there and just, let it go, fell. And then now it's a freak thing. Now somebody falls on his leg and tears his patellar tendon. Like, what are the odds of that? Like, I've never even heard of somebody tearing a patellar tendon by being fallen on. But if you watch that play, that's the only way it could have happened when the guy's weight fell on his leg.
No, I mean, this season, and we said it before the season started, right? There are two things that I was most concerned about going into the season. Number one, if we get injured, how do we react to that? And it's pretty safe to say that we reacted by overcompensating and by under executing. And then on the second side of it is the penalties. And are we going to be a disciplined team? Because we've just been beat up by penalties. We've lost games because of penalties. And are we going to be more disciplined, or are we going to be more professional? And I think the answer to those two questions at week 13 of this season is no and no. We have failed. I would give us almost close to an F on both of those things. And now, injuries aren't your fault, other than when Baker decides to take on, a defensive back in a tackle drill. That one is his. Now, it's not his fault that he got injured, but it's his fault for putting himself in the position to get injured. And then what do you know? You get injured, right? So I kind of put that on him. So as you were talking about before, if you're out there, if you're going to play, then you're going to play. And we can't, I also think this is kind of odd. And tell me if you thought this was odd. This is what I was thinking. You remember the play where Baker ended up rolling out of the pocket and goes out of bounds after getting like 2 yards?
Limping.
And then he comes limping back, or just kind of hobbling his way back.
But it's the best he's felt, according to them.
To me, I feel like it's acting. I feel like it's like he's signaling to the world that I'm not feeling good and have pity for me, and I'm not at 100%. That's why you're not seeing 100% me. Whereas, you don't see I didn't see the hobbling all game. I only really saw that one play.
Yeah,
one play. When he knew the cameras were going to be on him, and he kind of hobbles back like, woe is me, let me get back there. Okay? I just felt that was odd. It was just odd, right? But the bottom line with this is, I really firmly believe that you have to go one of two ways here at the quarterback position. Let me switch to the quarterback scenario, right? You have two different directions you can go in the NFL quarterback. You have to go hyper athlete, right? Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick,
Kenny Pickett.
Or you go straight up statuesque.
But he's got
passer.
wheels.
I don't.
He's got some ability.
I don't know. I don't know that much about him, to be honest. I don't know enough. I haven't seen enough of him to be able to say, like, I know he's a passer. That's all I know.
I'm going to send you some film on him. It's like a 9-minute clip, and then after, not during the show, but after.
Yeah.
And then message me and let me know what you think.
Okay.
He's got escapability, movability, and he can make every throw.
So
not to say that that's going to happen, but I will say this: I'm fearful that who is going to get him.
The Steelers, yeah.
Yeah, very fearful.
Yeah, especially in Pitt. It's like they missed out on Dan Marino, and I think that's that this is another one that could come bite him in the ass if they don't take the kid in their backyard. But yeah. I think that there are two types of players that you have to go. You go the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, although Aaron can move, but he's a pocket guy, right? Matt Ryan type guys. Or you go hyper athlete. The guys that are the tweeners that aren't quite pocket passers and aren't quite athletes are the ones that get crushed.
Yeah, and you just really touched on it, because if you take, perfect example. And they both won the Heisman. They both came from the same place. They're both about the same height. And that's Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. They're both have the same level of accuracy as far as I'm concerned, especially from what I've seen in the pros. And the only difference is Kyler Murray can beat you with his legs, and he's fast enough to elude a blitz, be able to get far enough away to then set himself up and pass, as opposed to, Baker, who, he's got escapability, but, it's like Jeff Garcia escapability.
I think Garcia's more elusive than Baker, especially now with Baker's injuries and stuff. I thought that Baker was going to be more athletic, but then now you look at it and you think back to that police film
I knew it. I knew you were going there.
You think back to that thing, and you're like, Kyler Murray's getting away from the police, guys like that, and that's where that's my point, though, right? If you have to make a decision, and you have to go and make a decision with what's available, you can't just.
Howard always likes to use that.
He does,
that analogy. He does.
But if you can't pluck these guys out of the sky and say, "Oh, well, I'm gonna create a character in Madden," it comes down to what are the options, who's available, and I think for damn sure, you can mark my words, everybody, they are absolute. It's the quarterback position in this draft. It's on the table. And it might not be first round. They probably are instructing their scouts. Guys, comb all leagues at this point. We want to know who's available, and we want to know where these guys might be available. Because if we can get a guy maybe in the third, fourth round who are maybe they had some issues, maybe there was like something
like a Dak Prescott.
Like a Dak, like a Russell Wilson. Something like that, who aren't going to be for sure day one starters, but could benefit from sitting on the sidelines and watching for a year, and then making the determination based off what they see in practice and the level of development that they're seeing. And maybe if we have to throw the kid in as a backup because Baker gets hurt, like he's been hurt consistently every year he's been in the pros, is that the option? I guarantee you it is. And if there's a Kenny Pickett that falls to them at 16 or 12 or wherever the hell they land, I mean, if that guy is there, I mean, they're probably going to be foaming out the mouth, right? To maybe make the decision and say, Kevin, we're going to give you your guy. Last year, we gave Joe Woods his guys. We went out there and we gave the groceries to Woods. And for other than a couple games, those guys have performed, right? So now what do we do on the offensive side of the ball? And I mean, I hate to say it, but that's it. Now I want to throw some other scenarios at you, okay? Because everybody's talking about, we want Russell Wilson, we want Aaron Rodgers, right? Although I do think if you take, honestly, either Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers and you plug them in to any team with the level of talent that we have, they are plug and play drastic improvements. And I don't care what Russell's been doing recently. You take a Russell Wilson, or Aaron Rodgers, two guys who have Super Bowl rings and have deep playoff experience, and they have been there before, right? That is also an advantage. You got to keep that in consideration. Those guys aren't coming to Cleveland.
And I would probably go a step for like Russell, for example. I mean, he's having a tough time with DK and Lockett. Now, throw that aside, right?
But he doesn't have Hunt and Chubb. That's the only thing.
Let's just say it's just an off year or whatnot. But for where this team is right now, you wouldn't be able to go get a Russ, because in order to get him in here, even if he would come here, which I'm sure he's got a no trade. Sure. Yeah, no, he does. And he's not freeing it up to come to Cleveland. But with that being said, he's under contract. So you're looking at least 2 ones to pry Russell away from Seattle. And we're just too young of a team and too much on an upswing to give away that youth. Aaron Rodgers, that would be, I believe he's a free agent. So, I mean, that would be that could be doable.
It'd be fantastic,
but he's not coming.
Yeah. If you're Aaron Rodgers and you're pissed off at the organization that basically you built ever since the Favre era, this is the Aaron Rodgers era, right? And you're having them, you've got Adams, you've got Randall Cobb back, you got that kind of stuff. Are you going to come? You're used to elite wide receiver play. Jordy Nelson, Donald Driver, like all these type of guys. You're going to come to Cleveland where you've got, like, I don't even know what the heck's going on with Higgins. He's probably not going to be back, but he's not to the level that Aaron's used to.
That's the thing.
Jarvis
he's probably not
30.
Going to be back. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you just,
What do you say to Aaron Rodgers? You go, Aaron, come to Cleveland. We're gonna let you hand the ball off a lot.
Hey, Aaron, if you come to Cleveland, we will give you anything you want. However, you also need to bring Adams along with you. Now, the twofer, I'm in all day long. Aaron Rodgers having to throw to DPJ and Austin Schwartz and somebody else. You know what I mean? Like if they don't get a stud in the first round, if that's the way they went. But yeah, I just don't. There's nothing. Even if hypothetically speaking, let's say they're both free agents, Wilson and Rodgers, they're not coming here with what we got.
No.
And it's funny because it goes back to what we were just talking about a little bit earlier about how, man, we thought we had so much, but then that all comes back and I gotta tell you, some people are so soft on Twitter. Like even in a nice little conversation, right? Like I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and then they unfriended me, and they unfriended me because I kept bringing up OBJ, and they kept saying we're moving on. Well, no shit, we've moved on. I mean, we've obviously moved on, but as I've said on this show a million times, and I've said it on the pre and post, 500,000 times, is that even though OBJ was a big pain in the ass and, he was causing what on the outside we'd call controversy, but, according to the guys on the inside, I mean, the guy was a saint, so you can't even use that as an excuse. But even if he was dropping balls here and there and he wasn't playing good, he literally was responsible for any receiving touchdown that we had that wasn't his, because you could go back to the film, and you and I have talked about it. He still draws double coverage because our fans are the only ones in the league, I think, and Giant fans that believe that OBJ sucks and is washed up, right? Because why his name is escaping me right now? The head coach of the Rams, Sean, what is his name? Why can't I think of his name?
McVay.
Yes, McVay. If you look at McVay, I mean, he's one of the or if not the most young, brilliant offensive mind in football right now. And he was like, bring him in. They watch film, they know. So by losing him, we lost the rolling coverage. It's gone.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, let's put it this way. If we have OBJ the other night, we find a way to score more than 3 points off 4 interceptions because somebody else would have been open. They wouldn't have been able to just sell out like that and single up on everybody else because nobody else was a threat. They would have had to respect OBJ, which would have opened something up. And I guarantee you they would have scored more than, I mean, if you look at the Steelers game, I mean, if we don't cough the ball up a couple times, that's not a 10-point loss or, 10-point scored loss. We score at least 21, 24 points that game.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't even use that as a game or, you can't use that game in that analogy or in that analysis, if you will. It's everything post that Steelers game. And since that Steelers game, we can't do shit, right? Because there's no threat anywhere now. What do you think? They're scared of Hooper? I mean, he drops 1 out of 3 balls. You think they're scared of Njoku? No.
Same thing.
Harrison Bryant? No. DPJ? No. Jarvis Landry? Maybe a little bit.
I mean, I would argue they're not afraid of Jarvis at all. Yeah, well, I mean, they left him wide open in the raid. They're like, fine, beat us, Jarvis.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, what's the difference between this receiving core and a Corey Coleman led 2018 receiving core? I mean, seriously,
Coco.
You know what I mean? So it to me, by in hindsight, the whole OBJ thing really derailed the rest of the season, in my opinion, only because of, and think of the run blocking. He was a superb run blocker. So you lose the decoy, you lose the double coverage, and that rolls over to that because of his talent, and you lose any threat of. I mean, why do you think they're throwing 8 in the box and daring Baker to win? I mean, the guy's hurt, and who does he have to throw to? So that's my take on that. I come back to that because it sucks, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, God, I'm looking back at the 2017 Browns. Duke Johnson had 74 receptions that year. I mean, we just basically dumped it off to Duke half the damn year. Yeah. And then Seth DeVolve with 33. So it went from 74 receptions to 33. Okay. Then you have Njoku, rookie. Then you have Isaiah Crowell, who's got 28. Then Higgins, 27. Then the 2 starting wide receivers both had, the starting wide receivers, Ricardo Lewis.
There's a blast from the past.
Ricardo Lewis with 27 receptions, 0 TDs. Coco, 23 receptions, 2 TDs. Kenny Britt, 18 receptions, 2 TDs. And Josh Gordon, I forgot Josh Gordon played in 2017. Josh Gordon, 18 receptions and that 1 touchdown. My God. But honestly, if you really think about it, outside of Jarvis at this point, like, is there anybody that really scares anybody? Like you said, I mean, DPJ dropping that pass was disastrous. Now, I know we had 2 guys wide open on the play as well.
On top of each other, might I add.
On top of each other, so something went wrong there. But the bottom line is, it hit DPJ in the damn hands. It hit Felton in the damn hands. It hit Njoku in the hands. It hit Hooper in the hands. Now, some like Njoku and Hooper, did the defensive guys make good plays? Sure. But that's their job. Your job is when the ball hits you in the hands to catch the ball and secure it. And they couldn't do that. And so when people are saying Baker's trash, Baker's this or that, imagine if they catch those balls. Right? Imagine if Hooper catches the ball on Halloween, going into the end zone on the first drive. Just imagine if these things happen.
And that's the thing. When I went back and reviewed these games again, you can't, if you said to me, like, how would you, if you had a list to blame in order, I mean, it's the players, and then maybe a little of the play calling here and there. And like we talked about earlier in the show, in terms of maybe getting cute in the wrong moments or straying away from the run, stuff like that. And we forget, I mean, Stefanski's only called plays exclusively, this being year 3. So, the execution has just been really poor, to your point. And that's what I see when I go back and I watch the all 22. Just, I mean, last game was a microcosm of the season. Sailing balls, missing receivers, drops, guys in the wrong place, offensive linemen getting blown up. Mm-hmm. It's just, I mean, you now, I will say, I still don't understand this whole audible thing and just calling the 2 plays and whatever. I think that needs to change. And obviously I have no say in it, but you just can't continue to run to an overloaded side and basically just give that play up. Like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. It's an incomplete pass that the clock continues to move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me throw this at you. Okay. Yeah. I think I think there's 5 possible options beyond the kids in college. And
Yep.
if you look at the stuff from college, you look at the quarterbacks that are going to be available, like the Matt Corral, you look at Kenny Pickett, you look at some of those guys that are out there, the kid from Liberty, Corral's like maybe 6 foot and he's not a runner.
I'm not. If I had to, me personally, who I like, but
yeah. So I don't think we can go with an undersized quarterback. We can't go with another barely 6 foot guy. Like we have to go with either prototypical 6'3" to 6'5" type guy. And you look at that. You look back to Bernie. Remember Bernie, how unathletic he was, but how laser accurate he was. And the reason why he was able to be so good for so long, even with all the injuries, was because he could see.
Oh, yeah. He would just stand back there and throw darts.
He could see, right? He could see over the offensive line and he could make the things happen. I don't remember, even with the sidearm delivery or that 3/4, barely 3/4 type delivery that Kosar had. How many balls do you remember that Kosar got knocked down at the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, not many.
I can't remember one. And I'm sure it happened, but I don't remember them. I remember every game. Every game, there's like, oh, there's the deflection. Every single game.
I never understood. Not that there was, if you look at that draft, I feel like it was a million years ago, but that was what? Baker was the 2018 draft, right?
Correct.
So if you go back and you look at that draft today, Lamar and Josh Allen were the cream of the crop.
Lamar might have got number 1 overall.
Yeah. Like if you had like a hindsight kind of thing, absolutely. But it's like you go back to that draft, and they're really. Now we know that there were at least 2 clear-cut number 1s at the quarterback position. But back then,
you couldn't have made that. You couldn't have made that decision going number 1 with Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson.
No, you couldn't, because you had the other 2 guys that were thrown in the mix as well, Darnold and Rosen, and you just didn't know. But the when I knew, because I wasn't a Baker guy coming out, I learned to love him and then to be mad at him. But when the guy that was with Dorsey and then came on as a special advisor, and I can't think of his name. I think he came from Kansas City, famous guy. I think you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it rings a bell. I don't know though who it is.
Yeah, I can't think of his name in the chat. If you guys remember who it was, was it Scott Paoli? I don't know. It was somebody like that was really, really, really high on Baker, and was in Dorsey's ear on that. And once that guy, who I knew was a Baker stan, when he came on as a special advisor, I knew that's who they were going with at 1. And it's just mind-boggling to me. And again, that draft, you didn't know. There wasn't a clear cut. Like,
and imagine this too. Imagine if the Jets, if we go Darnold, because it was like Darnold or Baker. Like nobody was thinking Josh Allen. And they would have been crucified for taking Allen there over Darnold and over Baker, because those are the 2 guys that were like close enough, right? And then Baker goes to the Jets and sets the all-time rookie passing touchdown record. We would have been crucified. We would have been, the Browns blew it again. And Baker gave us that rookie year. He sets the record that was then broken by Herbert, but he sets the record and he gives us hope. And then the next year, the hope fades away, and guys like Lamar Jackson and guys like Josh Allen start to emerge as the true talents that should have probably gone there.
Yeah, you didn't have that clear cut coming. You didn't have the Peyton Manning. You didn't have the Andrew Luck. Even Eli Manning, you didn't have coming out. So it just drives me crazy that we always seem to wind up. I mean, Brady Quinn wasn't that short, but he wasn't that tall. DA was a tall guy. I think he was like 6'5", something like that. But obviously lacked talent. But it's just really mind-boggling to me. Like we can't get like a prototypical, AFC North, NFC North type of quarterback.
Yeah, DA was the closest thing that we had to it. And I think he only threw like 29 touchdowns, but 17 of them went to Braylon.
Yeah.
17 touchdowns. Right? And you look at that, and you had Braylon, and you had Kellen Winslow, and you had Joe Jaravicious, I believe, was on that team. Like you had really good stuff going on there. And then I don't know. I mean, we could go on for days, but I wanted to throw this scenario at you. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think there's 5 guys that are out there that are possibilities now. And I think each one of them have reasons why. And I'm not looking at their contract, and I'm not looking at who's free agents. I'm not looking at any of them, but it's not Russell Wilson. It's not Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
And I'm going to throw these guys at you, and let's not take it from the standpoint of contract or like what it would take to get him. Cause we're just going to play. We're going to say just like the Rams were able to get their guy in Matt Stafford.
Yep.
Let's say that we're able to just get our guy because he's the one who's out there, and we're going to go all in for him and give up draft picks and everything. Okay. Maybe toss Baker into it and be like, here you go. I think one of them, and I'm not going to put him in any particular order, but one of them is Matt Ryan. He's 36 years old, and the Falcons aren't going anywhere. And he's one of those guys, one of those crafty veterans who's had a lot of success. And if you give him the right kind of tools, is he kind of the quarterback at this stage in his career that would say, you know what, I'll go to Cleveland. I'll go hand the ball off a ton of times, and hopefully they'll go grab me a wide receiver, and and I can make it happen. Is Matt Ryan something that's possible in your mind?
Are we just going to go? We'll go one.
We're going to go one at a time. Yeah.
Okay. Matt Ryan, I think, is washed. I think you're not going to see big time play out of him. If you look at obviously Ridley is now out with on the IR, but before he was out,
you gotta think about this though. You're handing Matt Ryan this offensive line and these 2 running backs.
Yeah, but if we learned anything thus far, we need to pass the ball, even with the running backs. So I'll throw you this bone. The only way I could see a Matt Ryan coming to Cleveland would be if they just absolutely flat out gave up on Baker, drafted a kid, and like, let's say a Kenny Pickett, and he was the bridge. That's the only way that Matt Ryan. But then Matt Ryan. But then
Matt Ryan would have to agree to be that bridge too. And if you're going to do that, might as well just do it with Case Keenum.
Correct. And before you go to your next guy, I'm just going to throw this little tidbit out there, and we don't have to talk about it. But one thing that frustrates me, I don't understand why we wasted so much money on a backup quarterback. That money could have been used somewhere else. And you could be the backup quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, because unless Baker's leg is falling off and we're down to one stitch before it falls off like a doll,
he's going to play.
Yeah. Case Keenum ain't playing. So you're not playing. We could pay you the league minimum, right? And what would it have mattered?
And I think here's the reason why. Case Keenum was brought in because he had success with Stefanski. Okay. And that actually leads me to my next guy.
Okay.
Kirk Cousins.
Now, it's funny
33 years old, same age as Russell Wilson.
Kirk Cousins,
coming off possibly the best year of his career.
Kirk Cousins is he's funny, and not him being funny, but just him in the scenario,
the ethos
of
right.
things is because like you look at a guy like Kirk Cousins, and like I'm guilty of it. Like if you'd say to me, right, and we play fantasy football, if you said to me, oh, Kirk Cousins is having a killer year with the Vikings this year, I'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. But no, he really is. But it's
like a phenomenal season.
Yeah, like you say Kirk Cousins, and there's like a stigma around Kirk Cousins. But then you look at the numbers, and I think it's like 23 touchdowns to 3 interceptions or something like that.
It's very similar to like late in his career, like 33-year-old Vinny. Very similar to that.
Again, you would anybody would be lying to themselves.
He fits in the window.
If you didn't, he's an upgrade over Baker. I don't care what anybody says.
Baker's never had this type of gap between interceptions and touchdowns.
No. Kirk Cousins puts up yardage and he puts up points. So, but again,
and he's played with Stefanski.
So I mean, it's a plug and play. You run into, hey, I mean, and let's say, because I know we're going hypothetical because we don't know contracts or whatever. So right now, Kirk Cousins is a free agent in our little fairy tale here.
It could be a free agent, or it just could be a situation where the Vikings are like, you know what, we're gonna rebuild. Like we've tried it and it didn't work. And even though you had a phenomenal season, we're ready to let go.
But we're not giving up any capital or anything like that.
Right. It's going to take a lot for us to get him, but we're willing as the Browns organization to give that up, a la Matt Stafford to the Rams.
So for Kirk Cousins, no, I wouldn't give up early picks for him. I wouldn't go that far. But if he were a free agent, or I could get him here for, a 3 and a 4, and bring somebody in receiver wise, because again, you can't leave these guys hanging out to dry with the cupboard that we have, because now Kirk Cousins is 23-3 with Justin Jefferson, Thielen, and there's another cat there that's playing really well. So you got to bring him at least a weapon, whether that's
but maybe you can attract that weapon with Kirk, like, because the receivers are out there, like the Allen Robinsons out there. They're looking at who's going to be throwing me balls.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I would probably say that if you were able to pull a Kirk Cousins over and not cutting Baker. Baker stays. He's under contract for the 5th year. So they're going to compete in the preseason. And hey, if Baker could beat out Kirk Cousins, then maybe we might have been wrong.
And you know what? I wouldn't mind a preseason competition. I'm sick of these guys not playing in preseason and just going into the first game raw and sucking.
And to your point, there is going to be competition. We just don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you in a hypothetical world, you could probably pull Kirk Cousins and you could probably get an Allen Robinson in here. Well, let's put it this way. I would go out on a limb and say gimpy Ben Roethlisberger, right? After 4 interceptions the other night, would have put at least 1 or 2 touchdowns in the end zone against the Ravens. I strongly believe that.
100%.
Strongly believe that. So then to go one step further on that, a Kirk Cousins would have put you in the end zone at least once or twice off of 4 turnovers. So yeah, I mean, so I would be in on something like that. And I agree, Ellis. I absolutely agree, because it has been a nightmare, because And before you would come in, we were talking about earlier in the season and where we are in terms of, how excited we were. Hey, we got OBJ and we got Hunt and Chubb and we got, Hooper and a great offensive line. And then now here we are by week 13, and we're like, well, we might need this, and
here it is, guys. We're just playing out the scenarios, because the reality is, like, we're living in a world, Mike, you said it, there's going to be competition next year. They have not given him the bag for a reason.
Oh yeah, somebody's coming.
Something's coming. It's going to be a rookie or it's going to be a veteran, but it's not going to be like, hey, Baker, this is your team, lead us to the promised land. It's going to be, go out there and earn it. And then if you earn it, and Baker has been paid very handsomely, since he got here, with all the endorsements, with all the stuff. Baker has made some money so far. So it's not about that. It's about pride. It's about, possibly, just losing your job.
Yeah. And speaking of losing their job, because you always get me right into the segue beautifully. Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, they have jobs to protect as well.
Sure.
So if the conversation we just had a second ago, Ellis not being able to believe what the hell is going on. We can't believe what's going on. So if he can't believe what's going on, I can't believe what's going on, and you can't believe what's going on, what do you think JW and Jimmy are thinking and D are thinking? They can't believe that it's going on, right? Now, I'm not saying that they're like getting ready to pull the plug on either of those guys. However, it's a what you have done for me lately league. So you can't just rest on your laurels and just hope that, year 5 and year 3 in Stefanski's system that, Baker's just going to turn into an all-pro. They can't throw all those cards and all those eggs into that one basket. They can't do it. They're going to have to bring in competition, because you just can't. You can't go in another year with Baker and Case Keenum and say, have at it. There's windows here. There's rookie deals that are ticking away, and Denzel's contracts coming up. And
Miles in the prime of his career, and so
you can't.
It's where you have the opportunity. And now, Mike, you actually just kind of brought up something that sparked my imagination here for a second.
Yep.
As much as you're in love with a guy like Pickett, okay, guess who's going to have the number 1 pick this year, and guess who's going to be picking that number 1 pick this year?
It's got to be the Lions.
It's going to be the Lions, and John Dorsey's going to be there. He's brought in because of talent evaluation.
Oh, you know what? So you're getting a little sneaky on me is what you're doing. You're saying, hey, maybe he thinks that he can have his guy back.
My next guy on the list is Jared Goff.
So you're thinking,
I'm just saying these are the guys that are available, and I'm throwing the scenario at you.
I
want you to react to it. That's all.
Well, all right. The only way, you got me excited for a second, because I felt like we were getting rid of Baker and getting up to the first.
Here's the situation. It could be that, though. But I don't think Dorsey's given us number 1 overall for what Baker's shown us.
I don't know Goff. I can't. It's funny. Steve just put that in the chat, and I didn't even, I said it as I saw it.
He's 27 years old.
No, I can't do it. He's terrible. He's terrible. Everywhere he's gone. He got them to a Super Bowl, but did he? You know what? I'm going to go on record here, believe it or not, and say I would rather suffer another year of a torn labrum Baker than Jared Goff. So for me, he's a no. He's off the table.
Let me throw this at you.
All right.
Okay. Jared Goff. I'm not disagreeing with you, by the way. Okay, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think you're
lucky you caught me in the mid-drink.
I think this is not only he's not the worst guy on this list. Okay, he's not, but he's also like not. He's one of those guys that is a kind of Kirk Cousins like guy. Okay, let me throw this at you.
I think right now, Kirk Cousins was in Minnesota, and he just got like a real like a twitch, and he doesn't even know where it came from or how it happened. It's just a blip in the radar of his life, but he doesn't realize that the reason why that just happened to him is because Mike down in Florida just compared him to Jared Goff.
Hey man, I'm if you take the names off of the stats and you throw them in front of me, and I throw this guy at you, second year in the league, he goes 11-4, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Third year in the league, 13-3, 32 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Fourth year, 9-7, 22-16. Fifth year, 9-6, 20-13. Right? If I'm throwing these at you, do they sound kind of like what a Kirk Cousins could put up?
Yeah, I already know it's Jared Goff. I can't even play the game.
Okay,
only because. So if you think of Jared Goff,
the key tower would collapse.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to put Baker's toughness meter, right? If you had to put his toughness meter ranked 1 not tough and 10 tough, right?
Yeah.
Baker would be like Spinal Tap, and he'd be like an 11, right? Okay. Jared Goff would be like a -1, right? He would take one hit from somebody in the AFC North, and he'd be looking for his teeth, his finger, and his leg somewhere. And that $500,000 backup that I was talking about would probably be in, and then we'd all be crying on this show on the Wednesday following.
Okay, all right. So I'm with you on the Goff thing. I'm not on the Goff train.
I'm ready for the next one.
I'm just saying that it's not as bad as I think. I mean, he's had two. It's like his career has gone like this. It's like a parabellum. It's gone up and then it's gone like this. It started at 0 wins with the Rams, and it's down to 0 wins here at Detroit, and he had some really crazy seasons in there where he went to the Super Bowl. Okay. And by the way, I'm telling you this, I think Goff is gone. I think he is a free agent, and I think he'd be very cheap. So I'm just throwing it out there. If we end up launching,
I'm writing this down somewhere.
If we end up, I'm just
Goff stan.
I'm just saying that there is a timeline in the infinite timelines where Jared Goff is a quarterback for the Browns. I'm not advocating for it. He's not my first pick, but stranger things have happened. We had Jeff Garcia as a quarterback. We had RG3. Okay.
Oh my God. And we were so excited when we got RG3. This is going to be a resurgence, and the Eagles whooped us right out of the gate.
Dude,
I'll never forget that game.
I'm telling you, man, like stranger things have happened.
Wait, I'm excited. Who's the next guy?
Okay. Next guy. Now, this is going to be this again. It's just a stretch, but we're talking about, these are I know how crazy this sounds, but these are all, is there anybody in this list that's not plausible? Not in any way plausible? Because I can make an argument for that, though.
I know you could, but we don't like it.
I know we don't like it, but I'm saying that it's not like Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is not plausible. That's like Tom Brady was not on the Browns. The Browns weren't on his radar. Okay, so that's as much of a fantasy as I think, even more I think Jared Goff. Next guy on the list, 39-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick.
No. Maybe as a backup for $2 million.
Which may be possible.
Does Ryan Fitzpatrick even play anymore?
I think he was in Washington.
I think he's home now.
I think he was with Washington. I don't know if he's on it. Yeah, it says current team. Current team. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I can't even entertain this.
I'm just saying it's plausible. If
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Okay, Ryan's out. All right. Next. This is probably good.
I can only imagine where we're going now.
This is probably going to get even a little sharper, but I'm going to take a decade off from an age perspective. We're going from 39 to 29.
All right.
Again, this is
Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's not Garoppolo.
Okay.
Although, honestly, I probably should have put him on this list because that's actually a scenario we should discuss because he's not on this one, though. And I don't think he's 29. He might be, though.
I don't know what Jimmy G is.
I would think Jimmy G was probably more like 26 or 27 if I had to guess. But
I don't know. I feel like he's been in the league like as long as Brady, and they're always like tied together.
Jimmy Garoppolo is 30. Okay. So this is a guy who's 1 year younger than Jimmy Garoppolo and is available. It will certainly be available if we want him. Blake Bortles.
No. Again, I'd rather see Baker come out with a torn right throwing shoulder labrum.
Okay, let me see this. Okay, out of with Fitzmagic or Blake Bortles or Case Keenum.
Out of those three?
As just for backup. Now, if Baker,
as a backup,
we're but they're going to come in and compete.
Yeah, but they're going to
compete.
We need competition. None of those guys are competing.
You're right.
Baker could beat them. Baker could beat them with his left arm.
Okay. So maybe just competing with Case for the backup role.
Now, I will say, like a Jimmy G would probably give you some competition because I mean he's not a horrible quarterback. He's actually played well for the 49ers the past few games. But
13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions this season.
You know, it's interesting because obviously this would never be a thing. But somebody in the chat, Kruzov, just said Tua, and I just saw a side-by-side comparison between Tua and Kyler Murray at this stage in their career, and their numbers were like almost identical.
I don't think Tua has the same ceiling as Kyler.
Yeah, no, it just was pretty wild though. He's been playing good ball, but
and I think at this point, I think the Dolphins are going, all right. I mean, we were willing to let it go for Deshaun if they could have given. I think if they would have given almost
2 massage tables.
No, how funny would it have been if they would have said to the Texans, we'll give you Tua for Deshaun, but we need a guarantee that there's any issues, you have to give us Tua back. Like we have to swap the quarterbacks back.
And we keep the massage tables.
All of that. All of that stuff we get. And the oils, you know.
Oh yeah, nobody's getting the essential oils back.
The oils that are involved.
Are ours.
The CD player that's in the background. It's, you know, you're not playing Spotify. It's literally one of those Sony CD players that you can hear the disc spinning.
Oh, you remember that?
We have one in my daughter's room. So every day when I go in there, we have the lullabies that are on the Sony like disc player.
You hear that thing spinning.
So somebody brought up an interesting guy in chat too that I didn't consider. What about Gardner Minshew? Could he come in and compete with Baker?
Is he coming scantily clad with that mustache?
Why not?
I mean, the ladies would like that. They'd want the 2-4 with Gardner and Stefanski. Although Stefanski's, I mean, this job must be wearing on him because he is grayed like a president grays after like 2 or 3 years.
Oh yeah, he does. He does look like he's
that, or he stopped using Just for Men because I mean he just gray.
Yeah, I think Minshew. Okay, so I don't think Minshew's the answer, but I also don't think Minshew is. I don't think that's a terrible. I think Jacksonville gave up on him too early, and if Trevor Lawrence is staring you in the face, you have to do that.
Oh yeah,
you have to. Colt McCoy. My dad and I were talking about Colt McCoy this morning. Not to say that I think Colt McCoy is a guy that we should have held on to and tried, but he is he's carved out a nice little career for himself as a backup journeyman type quarterback. And I think that's kind of like the ceiling for Colt.
Another one of our tiny guys.
Another tiny guy, right?
Think about that. Johnny Manziel, Colt McCoy, I think it was the reverse order, and Baker. It's like,
I want to go. I'm going to throw even further back. Eric Zier.
Oh yeah, I remember.
He was like 5'11". I think he was like 6 foot, like, you know, in the program. But I think he was probably more like 5'11". Eric Zier out of Georgia.
All these tiny guys, like
you can't go tiny guy.
But back to your little game that we're playing.
Yep.
I don't know. I Minshew might be a good competition for Baker, but I don't know.
He's like a poor man's Baker.
Yeah, I think if you're going to bring somebody in competition wise, it's got to be somebody with a little bit of a scare factor. You know what I mean? Like if Gardner Minshew came in, like Baker's not like, oh man, I better lace my shoes up a little bit tighter. Like this guy might kick my ass. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no fear there.
Yeah.
But like, if all of a sudden in the off season, they weighed the options and they were like, hey, you know what? We can get a Garrett Wilson type of, or Chris Olave, or there's a couple other kids that are Burks, I think is one of them that from I can't remember where, and we're going to take one of those kids in the first round and we're going to bring in Kirk Cousins. And hey, if you want the contract and you want the job, figure out a way to beat him out in the preseason, and then you let those guys at it. And you know, if Baker winds up beating them out, then it is what it is, right? I don't think that would happen because I think Cousins would play better.
Yeah.
But I guess the point being is they're either going to be able to. I don't know. It just let me on the competition. Like, let me tell you this. Competition are you bringing?
Let me tell you this.
What it comes down to.
Every single quarterback that I've listed so far has had a better season in their career than Baker's best season.
I mean,
they've taken. We have guys that have taken teams to Super Bowls. Matt Ryan, Jared Goff. All right.
Oh boy.
I'm just throwing it out there.
If he finds a way onto this roster, we are never, exclusively me, I'm never going to hear the end of it.
You're not gonna buy a Goff jersey.
Yeah, a Goff Elite.
But again, I can't do this. But no matter what. All right, let me just say this.
Yeah.
Every one of these quarterbacks, and it is fact, it is not opinion. Every one of these quarterbacks has had not just a better season, significantly better season statistically and QB record, and has gone further into the playoffs than Baker. Matt Ryan, that's Kirk Cousins, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jared Goff, Blake Bortles went to an AFC Championship game. And I've got Minshew.
I told you that story. Which one? I saw Blake Bortles against Temple.
You did, yeah.
Throwing absolute dimes back then. But anyway.
And then I've got a couple other guys that are, again, I think one would be like hey, do we want to go Case Keenum or do we want to go this guy? Is Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
He hasn't.
I don't
That's probably what Andrew Barry said. So,
no.
Really, are we the Dolphins? Like we're like, are we really gonna offer Jacoby a contract?
I mean,
are we at that stage?
I mean, yeah. The one thing that I could say that our conversation, right, has just really opened the eyes on is it's going to be tough to get somebody in here that is legit competition if Baker is the guy that you're going with in the 5th year. Like it almost, after our little conversation here, right? It almost seems like.
And this is why I wanted to do this. This is why I wanted to do this scenario, because this is what it is.
No, it is.
It's what you have available.
No, it is, because you can literally, the options are going to be, you bring in a mediocre, you're not paying Case $6 million again. You bring in someone like a Gardner Minshew or
what about Cam?
Or I think Cam's too polarizing. You know what I mean? Like, Cam's not coming in here to back up Baker. If Baker, could you imagine the two of them on the same team in the same quarterback room? It would be like chaos all day long.
I mean, I think if you throw any of these guys, it's going to throw off the culture and dynamic of the team.
Yeah, I mean,
any of them.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna need,
other than maybe Jacoby. I think he'd be like, "Hey, I'm just here to be a backup."
But you know what? To your point, like, that would be like that. That's the only kind of mediocre talent that you could bring in to be, the quote unquote competition for Baker, is like a Jacoby Brissett or a Gardner Minshew. So, like, you're either going to do that and
may the best man win,
and let him and see what he could do on the 5th year, or and go out and get him a weapon, right, in the 1st round.
Yep.
One of those,
go get
stud receivers, or land somebody big in free agency, or they're going to let him play out the 5th year, and they have moved on in their mind and are going to draft a kid in the 1st round that they like a lot if he's there or can get him, and will be groomed during Baker's 5th year.
I think the free agent thing is a free agent weapons with very few exceptions. Jadeveon, you can call an exception. Very few exceptions come to Cleveland to get paid and do nothing, right? So think about this. Think about the guys that we brought in, okay? We traded for Jarvis. We traded for OBJ. We got Kareem Hunt because he kicked a chick, right? We got Austin Hooper, who, I mean, let's be honest, Austin Hooper wasn't Gronkowski. He had a great season and he had a lot of potential, but he wasn't like the second coming of Tony Gonzalez or anything. Okay.
Yep.
Everybody else we've either drafted or traded for. If a guy like Wyatt Teller was out there right now as a free agent with what he's producing and what he's putting on film, there's no way he's coming to Cleveland. Okay. Right. So we don't go out and we couldn't get Jadeveon Clowney on the year that we went to the playoffs, who would have played, if he would have stayed healthy, would have probably played in a tremendous role in our season last year.
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't get him. We got him the next year. Okay. Yep. So we're not going like an Allen Robinson, Aaron Rodgers, a Russell Wilson. These guys are not coming to Cleveland, especially with it's continuous dysfunction in the Haslam era. It ain't happening.
No, I don't disagree. You make a great point, because now, I mean, you just go back to the OBJ situation, right? It seems like no matter what is going on, whether we're playing well, winning a playoff game, or having a decent season, there's always some type of clown stigma that comes along with us, right? We just can't shake it. It's always something.
And it's like, how many teams out there who have just not met expectations? I mean, lots of teams have not lived up to the expectations that they've had. We're just doing it in a way that's like adds extra drama to it. Yeah. You know, OBJ's dad, Kareem Hunt's dad's now kind of hopping on the train, right? So let me throw out another scenario. Again, we're playing in, you know, we're doing this in a vacuum. Deshaun Watson.
I don't know how Deshaun Watson would do here.
Deshaun Watson, legalese aside, fits he's
another guy we could have had if you wanted him.
You're right. But Deshaun Watson is arguably the most dangerous of the athletic type quarterbacks out there because he can pass, right? Deshaun and Dak are very similar, I think. They can pass we don't even know, and they can run.
Yeah, but we don't even know what Deshaun Watson's capable of now. I mean, he could be slamming 12 beers a day and be out of shape, and we have no idea. I mean, I know he practices with them, but
how many Browns fans would be willing? And I know they're out there. Because I've thrown these, not this particular scenario, but I've thrown the scenario out there about back when the Patriots were deflating balls and cheating, and there are people out there who be like, I'll take the cheating for as long as I can get a championship, I'll take it. Those type of guys. So are there? There's guys. There's guys in chat like Fishing with Phil. Watson would be nice that are willing to overlook the personal stuff and the legal stuff for the talent. They're making a deal with the devil.
But now he's not a free agent, so you're going to have to deal for him.
Yeah, but I don't think you have to give up that much.
I don't know. The Dolphins were going to give up 2 1s, weren't they? And Tua. I think that was the deal.
I don't know.
I think it was 2 1s and Tua.
And I thought there was like a third. I thought there was like something where it was like there was a third team involved, and it was Washington, and Washington was going to get Tua. They were going to get Deshaun. It was like this big. It was almost like an NBA trade.
Yeah, I just know that there were a couple of ones involved.
Okay.
So let's say you didn't have a 2-for team, right? Or 3-for, I guess it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and you just tried to get him outright. Now you're going to have to give up 2 1s to go get Deshaun Watson. What? I mean,
so you give up. Let me throw
now
this.
You're giving up the future in the hopes that this guy isn't going to, be running out. I mean, we got one guy that goes to the Cheesecake Factory, and now we're going to trade him in for the guy that goes to the all-night masseuse parlor.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
I know, but like again, let's first take a look at it in a vacuum. And Deshaun Watson on paper is unequivocally an upgrade. Okay, and let me throw this. This is why I think we can make this happen. Baker's from Texas. He would love to be back in Texas, although Houston is not near Austin. It's still close enough, right? Him and his wife, I'm sure, would be very happy in Texas, although I'm sure she'd like to be out in LA, but they'd be very happy in Texas. And Houston would probably be like, you know what? Let's get out from under this. And here's the thing, like, what would you rather have, Baker or Tua? Right? I mean, personally, I'd probably Baker's a more proven asset at this point. So we can give you Baker and a 1 and a 2. I don't think you can throw in multiple 1s because of the issues behind it. And they're going to probably sit down and say, we're not going to have any contingencies on this. You want to take him? We're going to give you this guy, and we want full market value, and there's no contingencies. And that's what the Dolphins wanted. They wanted contingencies. They wanted to say, hey, look, if he gets arrested, if he can't play, if he loses time, blah, 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 we want our picks back. You can still have Tua, but we want our picks back. And they're probably like, we're not doing that, because we're not just giving you a risk-free thing. So if the Browns were willing to say, we will give you the picks and we'll give you Baker with no contingencies, I think they make that deal. Now, are we going to be, I'll tell you what, I ain't buying a Deshaun Watson jersey. If he throws a touchdown, I'll cheer. but I will very much have to hold my nose on that one.
I just think that if you're the front office and you're not in on Baker anymore, then I think if there's someone that you like in this draft, you go get them. Then that's the competition. And you see what happens with the fifth year. If the fifth year, if he winds up playing lights out, then that's just, more time to groom the young guy. So, and then worst case scenario, if Baker turned out to be the Oklahoma Baker finally in year 5 and 6, then, you have a piece to go trade and get something you might need in terms of draft pick, you know what I mean? So I just don't, I don't know. I just don't see any, I don't see any type of scenario where Watson, Rodgers, or Wilson, I'm sorry, I couldn't remember his name, come to Cleveland. I just don't see it. It's going to be Baker and a middle of the road guy, or Baker and a rookie, I think.
Well, if you look at the quarterbacks that are coming out of college that people are talking about right now, you got the Tanner Mordecai from SMU. You've got a guy that I find very interesting. I find very, very interesting that people aren't talking about as much as Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. The kid is 6'4", 215. He's a winner, 22 years old.
I like that. I like winners.
And he's going to be taking the Bearcats to the playoffs potentially, which nobody in their right mind thought that was going to happen. But I mean, they're undefeated. They're going. Right? You can't keep doing this to these undefeated teams. So they're going to have a shot. And if this Desmond Ridder kid figures out a way to beat Alabama and Michigan, I'm sorry, dude. He is probably going all the way to number 1 because of his size and what he can put on film. You got a couple other guys. This Malik Willis from Liberty. Great stats. He's a winner as well. He's a little undersized, in my opinion, like 6'1", I think. Is he 6'1"? So he's another Baker type size guy.
No, thank you.
Matt Corral is another. I think Matt Corral's like 6 foot.
He's a small guy.
He's 6'2". He's a 6'2" on Wikipedia,
which means 5'11" in real life.
And then you got Kenny Pickett. And Kenny is 6'3", good size, 220, thick enough.
Yep.
Great head of hair on him.
He does. I'm gonna send you.
He's a little. He's a little buttery though.
He reminds me of when wait till I send. I
plays with 2 gloves.
I'm gonna find this thing. I'm gonna send it to you so you have it as soon as the show ends.
Yeah.
He is like a little bit smaller, more mobile
Jared Goff.
Ben Roethlisberger. No.
But I mean, if you think about it, like everything you just said, it could have been a little smaller, a little bit maybe more nimble.
Everything for now on. You have to incorporate him into everything now from now on.
It's Goff season, here in Brownie post game land. It's December 1st. We are in deep fall. If we have to go back to when I first said that, and it might have been like December 1st. Okay, we're into December. I'm wearing the hat. You've got the deep fall shirt. You got the deep fall merch on. I actually love that Browns hat too. I can't believe I don't own that hat because it's the perfect deep fall hat.
It really is.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Look at the way the colors just flow with the.
It's literally perfect. Everything like about the ensemble.
And it should look like this, right? Because when we spoke to the Browns and told them that we needed a hat that matched the Brownie post game show deep fall T-shirt, this is what they came up with.
And let me ask, how is the fabric on the t-shirt? Is it nice?
It's a nice shirt.
Because I'm pretty sure it's American Apparel.
And it's true to size. It's a small.
Yeah.
And I got a shirt under it.
Yeah, man. I wish I could wear a small. I'm working on it. I got so
see your guns over there.
I'm deep into the Peloton.
Are you a Peloton guy too?
I'm a big Peloton guy. And
Mike's a Peloton guy too. He swears by it.
Me and my wife have recommitted after she got, we were really into it. Then she got COVID in August, and then we just like didn't touch it because she couldn't breathe. And then she was recovering in September. In October, we got back into it. In November, we started getting back into it a lot too. Other than like some weeks I've been traveling, we're back into it. And then for Christmas this year, we've decided as a couple that we're going to just get one gift for ourselves and everything else is going to go to the kids. And we bought the treadmill. So now we got the Peloton treadmill, the Peloton bike, and in the media room where I've got the big screen, the 136-inch projector, we do the Peloton app. So like you got all the floor exercises. So we do like, have you ever done like Orange Theory?
No. What is that?
Okay, so Orange Theory is like it's a workout studio type thing where there's 3 stations. Mm-hmm. There's a treadmill, there's a rower, and then there's like a floor routine with weights. And then like I want to say like every 20 minutes or something like that, you rotate your station. So you end up doing like 54 minutes of workout. So essentially what my wife and I are going to be doing is 20 minutes on the tread, 20 minutes on the bike, and 20 minutes on the floor. So we're going to do an hour in the mornings and recommit to it. Cause I'm a little bit paunchy right now. And I want to tighten back up for the summer. I want to get back into shape. And I think this is going to be the way to finally like do it. But yes, I'm a big Peloton guy.
It's funny because
I'm into it.
We do all like the Beachbody stuff.
Oh yeah, I used to do all the P90X stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do like right now we're doing muscle burns fat, and then we do like 80-day obsession and stuff. But we've been looking at I wouldn't even say looking at it, but we'll talk about the Peloton or whatever. And one of Laura's best friends has a Peloton, and now I know you have one, and Mike's always telling me about his. And it was funny because the other day, actually it was earlier. We were eating lunch, and Laura looks over and she's like, "Bought the Peloton," and I'm like, "Really?" And she's like, "Okay." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "I really didn't buy it. I just wanted to see what your reaction."
She was gauging the reaction on you.
And she's like, "It sounds like that might be something you're interested in." I'm like, "Hey, if you want to buy a Peloton,
listen, man,
I'll partake."
I was opposed to it because I thought it was like, the price tag on the website's like, $2,000. And that seems kind of absurd for a piece of workout equipment. I mean, that seems like back in the Bowflex days. I mean, you're like, that's a major commitment. But they have, they allow you to do financing with this thing called Affirm. 0% financing. You can push it out like 48 months. And my wife and I were like, hey, if we're going to buy this thing, like it's going to be a 48-month commitment. Like we want to make this part of our lifestyle, right? And we had been going to a cycling studio together, paying $100 a month to the cycling studio for like unlimited, rides until COVID hit. So COVID hits and we're like, damn, they shut down the studios. We couldn't even go. And then we're like, all right, well, let's look into the Peloton. And then we looked in, we did all the financing stuff, and it was like $49 a month for the Peloton and then you get access to all the so their workouts are, in my opinion, significantly better than Beachbody. Beachbody is all about like really high intensity movements and jumping around and shit. This is, it's very, very clean and crisp. So all of that stuff comes along with it. And you get the bike or the tread. So now we've got the whole circuit. And for the amount of money that we've invested, now we're in for the treadmill and the bike like $110 a month.
Not bad.
For 2 people, I mean, if you think about a gym membership could be $80 a month, right? Or this cycling class, it could be $100 a month, right? So I'm telling you, man, I think it's worth it. I think there's a trial period too that you can like try it out and see if you like it. I recommend it. I really do.
I'll have to look into it.
And I can give you $100 off with our my referral code. So anyway, fun times with the QB scenarios. I think from a consensus perspective, I think you and I would both agree Matt Ryan would be a stretch for the age perspective. I think if he's not washed, he's like very close to it. I don't think a Matt Ryan is going to do for the Browns like what Tom Brady did for the Buccaneers, or what Aaron Rodgers is going to do for whomever, like probably the Broncos, right? Yeah. So I think Matt Ryan's a scratch. Ryan Fitzpatrick is too old and probably would have just been competing for he'd want the starting job and he'd compete for the starting job, but he would ultimately just be, a Case Keenum replacement.
Yep.
There's Goff. I still think that there's an outside. What's going to be really funny though, Mike? Boy. Let me just throw this out there.
But when we find out that's our free agent
when we actually bring in Goff, this whole segment is going to be clipped and shown everywhere as we were the first people to have it. Okay, we were the first people we were the Mary Kay of the whole Goff gate.
And I would go as far as to say that this was all yours.
Hey man, I'm just the messenger. I'm the sage here. I'm the puppet master. You're the one playing the game. And you are definitely against Goff, and we can put that down in history. So if Goff ever leads us to a Super Bowl championship,
let me write this down.
Xander Hernandez says, I can see Goff.
No, don't buy into this.
Don't buy into the Goff match.
What are you doing?
I think in reality, I think in reality now it's been denoted. Yes. I think the reality is I think Stefanski loves Case Keenum, and Case Keenum's going to be here for a long time. He's going to have to take a pay cut because we're not going to pay him $6 million to sit on the fucking bench again.
No, not even $2 million. He shouldn't even give $2 million.
So I think there's a really good chance that if we don't get the kid that we want out of college, and there's some kids. It's not to say that like Pickett. I mean, who knows? There's some kids there, and who knows where we're going to draft and what we're willing to get up to get him. But if we go and grab a Pickett or anybody in the first 1 or 2 rounds, then Baker's essentially out the door. And then it just comes down to, it's not if, it's when. And then Baker will be doing a 2022 audition for his next team, which is, my guess is probably going to be Houston.
If that happens, we'll play that I'm going home song on here.
I think it's either going to be Cousins, because then you get Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins, 2 guys that Stefanski knows really well and knows that he can win with them and will fit into his system and bow down and say, okay, Kevin, you're the guy, let's go. And I got to tell you, I wouldn't, based off of, if you would have said Kirk Cousins before this year, I would have been like, throwing up in my mouth. But the fact that he's having a killer season right now, and if the Vikings are willing to move off of him and say, look, Thielen is at the end, what if we brought in Kirk Cousins and Thielen? Is that so bad, having Kirk Cousins and Thielen?
And Allen Robinson?
I mean, if you throw in Allen Robinson, that's a whole different scenario. You give us Allen Robinson. Let me just throw. We gotta backtrack to Goff now, because who knows what kind of stats, what kind of season Goff could have if you give him a weapon like Allen Robinson.
I mean, you almost got that.
Be serious.
You almost got that past me.
you were going in about like, okay, let's dance on this one for a second.
Yeah, and then I realized in out of this ear, I heard Goff and those weapons.
Goff.
There's some good, and I had a list here.
I don't even. I want to see if this effect works. Goff.
No.
Did it do anything? No, it didn't do anything.
No.
Damn it.
You've got Devontae Adams, Mike Williams, Chris Godwin, Michael Gallup, Christian Kirk, Allen Robinson, Will Fuller, Jamison Crowder, and Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, 9 guys there that are
upgrades over what we have currently on the field.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah. But can you convince one to come to Cleveland without a proven quarterback?
That is
and can you convince them to come to Cleveland when you've got, at the very least, you're going to have a QB controversy, and at the very best, you're going to have Baker, playing out of his mind for a contract.
If you look at that list, Adams, no way. Chargers don't let Mike Williams walk.
Godwin's not coming. They're not letting Godwin walk.
They're not letting Godwin walk. Gallup is a possibility. Christian Kirk's a possibility. Allen Robinson's a possibility. Will Fuller is a possibility, but he's not one that entices me. Jamison Crowder would be one, but doesn't get me excited. And I just can't see Juju all of a sudden about facing and coming to Cleveland.
No way. Although I don't think Juju's a bad guy. I think Juju. No, I think he would be embraced if he came to Cleveland. Hold on one quick second. BRB.
That we do, Anthony.
Oh, jeez. I don't know if you guys could hear that. I don't know if you guys could hear that through the headphones here.
What was it?
My dog, who is, you and I have talked about, who's super old, gets himself locked in not locked, but he goes into the bathroom, and then he just like kind of wanders around, and he gets locked in the bathroom, and the door kind of like just kind of swings shut. And it gets dark, and he's like, "Where am I? Like, is it over?" Like, so, and he was howling, and I was like, "What is going on?" Because I always shut the little gate so we can get in there. But my wife and my daughter just got back from gymnastics. So anyway, we're going a little long anyway, and I know we were going to go around the league. Around the league, we're not good. Other teams are good. Final thoughts, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's a regroup week. They can take the time to do a lot of self-scouting. I don't know what that's going to do. The positive is we're gonna be rested up, and the Ravens have to go to Pittsburgh. That's always a physical game, so they're gonna beat each other up, which we like. And I said it earlier. I think the defense will continue to play at a high level, and I just think that it's. What are we going to get from the offense? And that's basically, I think, is going to be the difference between going, 2-3, 3-2, or 1-4. I really do. And I said it earlier, and we had them 4 interceptions. Like, that was the game to steal. And then you're playing with house money at home. And so my only worry is that the offense is still not clicking, and you're not going to get back-to-back, poor games out of Lamar. So it's going to be a tall task, but it all depends on what this offense looks like when they come out of the bye. Mm-hmm. And Jarvis will be a little bit more healthier. Maybe Bryant will be okay. I haven't heard much. He has that ankle sprain now. So I don't know.
Every game, every other play, there was an injured Browns player. It's like,
oh yeah,
come on, guys, stay healthy.
So you don't even know, what who's the third tight end? Like, you know what I mean? You don't even know. We don't even know that right now. Is Bryant going to be healthy enough to be the third tight end, or are they going to have to, you know, get somebody off the street? Like, I can't remember if we had the one tight end that we liked that kept on the practice squad, off the practice squad. I'd have to look to see if he's still on it. I can't think of his name. But yeah, so it'll
there's
be interesting.
there's one guy out there he could be available. 6'4", 217 tight end.
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. He could get him to switch positions, and also he could play tight end and also like emergency quarterback. Logan Thomas for Washington, you got to know that, hey, if all the quarterbacks go down, Logan Thomas is taking snaps.
Yeah.
I mean, could we get Logan Thomas to come back?
Oh my God, yeah.
No,
we'll know more. Yeah, we'll know more Wednesday. But that's my 2 cents.
Well, and my thoughts are this. I know we had some fun tonight with some of the scenarios. I think the reality is it's still Baker's team to win or lose. I think in all honesty, knowing what this is, there's going to be competition. We have to all get our bodies ready for that. That, not to say that the Baker Mayfield era is over, but just to know that there's going to be one of two things. They're going to commit to a younger quarterback and say, go out there and try to do it, just like, Jimmy G and Trey Lance, right? Trey Lance hasn't really done much this season yet, but he's, you draft a kid that early, you're going to commit to that kid at some point, right? So if the Browns bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Kirk Cousins and say, hey, we're going to go out there and have you guys compete, that's a signal. That means they're not willing to just completely roll the dice with a rookie, but they are willing to see what else is out there and see if maybe there could be a slight upgrade, because I don't think any of these guys, other than possibly Cousins and certainly Deshaun Watson, would be massive upgrades. Deshaun would be the biggest upgrade. Cousins would certainly be an upgrade. The other guys would just be brought in for competition for Baker and see what he can do with the competition. He's either going to fold or he's going to step up and do it. But I think also, I know that we focus on the quarterback position because it's so important and it's so frustrating for us. But as we talked about earlier, with that first round pick, we still, as much talent as we have on this team, we still have some glaring holes and some things that we're going to need to fix no matter what. And with the amount of talent that's out there, can we possibly get some free agents? Yeah. But it's really going to be more likely like who we're going to get in the draft. Because that they don't have a choice then. They got to play for us or they don't play football. So we shall see. For the remainder of the season, guys, I'm going to say it's very unlikely we make the playoffs. We basically lost the division. So we're not going to win the division. If we squeak our way into the playoffs somehow by a miracle, then we do. I think it's much more likely that we actually collapse and lose out. I would say it's more likely we lose out than we win out and win the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
I think we beat the Raiders. I think we beat the Bengals, but I think we lose more than we win on the way out here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if they could find a way against the Ravens, and I just don't know if they can, but if they did, then that means the offense is clicking out of the bye, and then I guess anything's possible. The only one game on the schedule. I mean, they threw 4 picks, but I mean, it was a 1 possession game, so it's not like we can't hang with the Ravens. So if we came out of the bye and won, it wouldn't surprise me. You could go on a little run. You could go 4-1 if the offense started clicking. I mean, that's a big what if, but
there's nothing that we've put on the field so far this season that would lead me to believe that like we're about to go on a run.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree.
The opposite is what I think is going to happen if there's going to be something that happens.
Yeah, and I'm sure Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Christmas is going to look like. We were all so excited for that game, and
Just get the eggnog ready, guys, because it is going to be.
Spike it up.
It's going to be a long. It's going to be a long day. You know what I'm thinking? For Christmas, this will be my final thought. I think for Christmas, I'm going to enjoy the day. I'm going to enjoy watching my kids open up Christmas presents.
As you should.
My parents are going to be there. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law are going to be there. So we'll hang out. We'll spend some time together. We get to watch, no matter what happens, whether the season's over and we're mathematically out of it, we get to watch we're going to watch football anyway.
Yep.
Might as well be the Browns, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Even if we are mathematically out of it, then it'll be stress-free watching Browns, Yeah. So it'll just be, hey, Browns are on TV. Let's turn it on. Let's see what's going on with the game, right? So either way, I'm going to enjoy it. And all right, guys, thank you very much for being with us tonight. No giveaways since we didn't win, so I don't have a mug to give away. And Sabo Apparel, we really only made a commitment to do a giveaway on Sundays, so I apologize for that. Although I did buy some stuff from Sabo today. Nice. I bought two pieces of apparel.
Nice.
From Sabo. I haven't seen my dad in chat, so I got my dad a shirt, and I got my wife a shirt, a tank top, nice. I guess. So supporting local small business, especially, I don't think I haven't bought anything from the other places in a little while. I mean, obviously the flag back there, and everything like that from Cleveland Clothing Co. and the mugs. But yeah, so I'm just gonna enjoy it, stress free, whatever. And that's actually, we're kind of to the point in the season where like the reality has really set in for me that this isn't a championship team and we're not gonna do that. So it's almost like, hey, just enjoy the rest of the season. Not take years off my life by screaming at my TV. So
you're good thing your dad wasn't listening tonight. This is the first time we didn't go through the PFF scores.
You know what? I thought about that, and I was like, when I was putting together the topics, I'm like PFFs, and I was like, you know what? It's not that it doesn't matter, but like when you lose a game like that, does it though? It's like, okay, we had some guys that did pretty good. This guy scored pretty. I'm sure Batonio played well. I'm sure Teller played well. I'm sure Miles. I mean, we have the trends now. I don't think there was anybody in that game that would have shocked me in terms of what they did, good or bad.
Yeah, there was. I'm trying to remember if JOK was lights out, and I wanted to say there was.
Say Denzel probably had a good game. Newsome probably had a good game. Delpit probably had a good game.
You want to laugh? You know. Who had a 67 and was fifth, Jedrick Wills. But what I wanted to do before I left is on the defensive side of the ball, Delpit was 1, Jacques was 2.
Wow. I wouldn't have said Delpit was that high, but good for Delpit.
91-1 and an 88-8.
You know what, for Delpit, I'll tell you this. Same thing we did when we talked about Mac Wilson. Great game, but let's get some consistency, and then I will celebrate you. Until then, it's just a data point. And every dog has their day.
That's right.
So continue to have them. And I'm not saying you got to be a 90. If you have a 91 every game, you're in the Minkah Fitzpatrick conversation, and I'm thrilled. And I'm like, I'm considering buying a Delpit jersey at that point, right? But one game does not make you a Pro Bowler, and I want to see more consistency, especially a game that we lose. Tough to celebrate that. Where did Mac Wilson come out, by the way? He's always like a fan favorite when we get to these.
10th.
With a 50?
He only played 3 snaps. And you want to know why? Because
the defense was playing well?
JOK played 68 snaps, which tells me that he was lightning fast because he's back to normal, and that's good going into coming off the bye.
Yeah, I don't see Mac Wilson making this team next year.
No, I don't either.
No, that's it. Taki probably will be here one more year.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because we can't say we didn't do some PFF.
We did some PFFs. My dad also will probably if he doesn't join during the game, then that means he's to bed early, and he'll likely listen tomorrow. So I'm sure he'll get a kick out of the quarterback conversation.
I'm sure.
He'll be like, you guys, the whole Guns N' Roses segment is he's gonna skip through all that.
He will, but that was part of my fave.
Oh man. All right. Hey guys, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll be back. No show this weekend because there's no game. So we all get a weekend off. Right? We all get to just sit back and chill. Recharge, do all that kind of stuff. We'll be back the next show will be the next Wednesday show.
Yeah.
And we'll know more about the injuries. We'll know more about all that kind of stuff. Maybe we should have an entire. If I come in with a Goff say, if you see the arrow going like this and it's Goff, you're going to be like, I don't think I can do that to us. But thank you guys very much. And we will see you next Wednesday. Go Browns.
See you guys. Go Browns.